Wall here. Welcome back for another update here with my friend Tom Owens, our director.
Hello.
And we want to talk now about post-production. So once animation is complete, and particularly in our show, things really accelerate to the final image. We go from, like I said before, the gray kind of, the storyboards of course, then the kind of gray version of the characters, and then they're slightly colored. And then we go to the final image, which of course you will see in the final. And there's a lot of stuff that comes in at once in that phase. You have your final picture, which is coming out of compositing, and all the different ways that lighting and all the cool dust motes and all those things are coming in. Then sound is coming in, so you have all your sound effects and your sound design and your Foley and all that kind of work, as well as music coming in. Mm-hmm. Mixing on the character voices, all that's coming in, retakes and ADR. It all just kind of comes crushing in very fast. Let's start first with when all that information is coming in so fast, right? You're just getting all these inputs. How do you keep a sense of balance? Like, because it seems like you could get thrown off into paying attention to one thing. And how do you keep the whole picture together, the whole story together, and not just get swung off into thinking about the sound effects or just thinking about one part of the production?
It's always fun to see this come together, because up to this point it's slow, but then from that last frame to this one, it all kind of comes in the razor sharp focus kind of quickly, and multiples of scenes. Whereas when you're looking at animation, we're looking at like 4 scenes a day or whatever. Suddenly you're looking at like, here's a third of the movie, boom, all of it, here it is. Then you get into the mood of the scene. That's when you get to play with adding a little bit of camera drift. You get to add the dust motes in the air and put things out of focus to just kind of really kind of play with the image. It's much like post-processing in photography, where you take a picture and right out of the camera, often it's an okay picture, but you mess with it and kind of push things and pull things and
and you really get a sense of space. I mean, the dust motes, all that atmosphere stuff really gets you. Now you feel like you're actually in the Igiby house in this case, out in the field with Janner. You get a sense of the wind. Sound effects starts contributing to that. The sizzle of bacon coming off of here, the clink of dishes, all that really starts to come into focus and convince you that you're actually in these places. I warned Andrew when we got to the spot. I said, here's what's going to happen is you're going to get a crush of beauty, right? It's just going to be like, whoa. And you're going to like probably over-respond. You're going to go, this is the best thing ever. And it's going to take a little bit to kind of settle into, this is what you folks will see as the first thing. It'll be what you come to expect. For us, it's been this slow raising of the bar and improvement in visuals and improvement in story. And then we get to this moment. And animation, I feel like, has this nasty curve where, like in regular live action movies that I've worked on, there's like this linear process of you film the actors and you see the edit and you're kind of progressing towards the final, and the final is a better version, but not significantly. Animation is like, whoop! Like, it's kind of ugly, and you have to have a lot of imagination to kind of fill it in, and then it's just all gorgeous. And so the thing is, you can come to love it more. You'll be like, oh, this is my favorite thing ever. The audience, you guys are only going to see that last piece. You don't see the stages, so you don't have that rush that we get. And we have to, I feel like I have to kind of tamp that back down and go, okay, for the audience first coming in, how are they feeling about this?
Right, because I mean, there's a lot of people that work on these things, lots of different ideas and stuff, and so it can get tough to kind of keep it. No, this is where we're going. We need to keep looking at this idea here. So,
how do you find your center again? Because sometimes you can kind of get off into an idea. Music can take off, and you love this music piece.
With music, it's really interesting because when you put movies together, when you edit it, you don't have your final music, and you can't just use any music. That's illegal. But we'll cut the movie with music from other movies, movies that had a scary or intense or funny or light bit. Well, you just use that as temp music, and it kind of gets the feeling of kind of what you're looking for. But then when you get to play in that sandbox of, we've got a musician, you might not even want that person to hear the temp music that you used to unfairly influence them. I don't want them to copy it.
What's tough here is there's so many things come in from all these different artists and choosing, oh, I love that, I don't love this. Like, I think listened to separately, like a music cue like that, you would go, oh, that's lovely, that's just beautiful. And then you have to say, that's lovely and beautiful and not for us. ooh, that's so hard. You know, because the artist has worked hard to create those moments, and whether that's in compositing and in kind of final visuals, whether that's sound design. You know, we had our first pass at sound design and environments. I threw out a whole bunch of it. You know, I was like, that's not the right environment, particularly around the Igiby farm. It was one that I was pretty harsh on. You know, that it was like, this sounds like a farm in Kansas. It doesn't sound like a cliffside farm. And the kind of sounds you would hear, the
Right.
insects, the birds, that kind of thing, is just the wrong thing. And another one was the sense of the waves, the dark sea of darkness, you know, crashing below. That it sounded like waves, you know, at like a beach here, you know, close. And I'm like, no, that thing's like 100 foot down there. It's got to sound distant and kind of, you know, that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that his sound that he delivered was bad sound. It was the lovely things, the wrong stuff.
Right.
know?
Yeah, and wind, you know, the wind will come back and it's like, I'm like, no, it should be that kind of gusty sound. We had a specific, no, it should feel like, you know, really buffeting. And the sound of the bugs. I was really excited about doing, every time you cut to a different place, really getting into the design of the sound. Like in Star Trek, I don't know if anybody ever pays attention to this, but when you get to a different spaceship, every one of them has a different low frequency rumble. Some of them are, and there's a bed of noise, and you don't hear it because there's music and there's dialogue and there's sound effects on top of that. But in the bed, in the very bottom, every environment sounds very, very different. And so, like out on the cliffs, for example, I wanted the sounds of like cicadas, but I wanted it to change pretty dramatically with each cut. Like when you watch a nature documentary, and it's like with every cut, it's dramatically different sound, and it wasn't like a constant, you know, sound. And then when you cut to the kitchen, I wanted just suddenly the frying bacon, and just to give that kind of mood of it feels more intimate to me, more you know, inside the room.
And the world feels more real. You know, it's amazing. I am a huge believer in, if you have great sound design and music and so forth, you can carry off a lot of things. And we really pushed Adam Frick, our sound designer, for those things. And I remember one of those being, what's the sound of the inside of the Igiby cottage? What's the sound of the inside of Books and Crannies? You know, and you go, Books and Crannies, well, it's just quiet. Well, that's not anything. You have to, what is that? You know, and in our world, we can't have like the hum of an AC unit, right? You can't have like the buzz of a television. Those aren't things that are in our world. So what are those sounds that are in there, and that we can cue off of and make it feel like it's a real place, you know? And if there's birds, what kind of birds? You know,
it's funny. Sound is something you really just kind of take for granted, and you take a movie with it that's maybe it's a horror movie, something that's supposed to be really frightening, something, and watch a movie that you're really familiar with the sound off. The sound, like, you can take a movie that's really intense and scary, but you turn that sound off, and it's just a series of cuts, and you're like, oh wow, the music and the sound design play an integral role in informing you what to think. It kind of prompts you to get an emotional response.
It does, and then there's times where we want to leave the audience, you guys, neutral. Like, we'll just kind of let stuff off, like no sound. Like, let you got to figure it out. And I love those moments, right? I think one of those is right after Slarb gets knocked out, right? There's a moment where it's like, you know, you just got to sit there.
Yeah.
Because like the characters, what's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen next, and we're not going to help you as filmmakers know what's going to happen next. You got to kind of just wait for it, you know? The other thing that we have as a challenge on our end that you should know about is, of course, we're looking at this in sections, often in scenes. And so for music, for sound design, it'll be, all right, let's cut scene 1 through 5. And you just kind of piece your way through it. Again, it gets hard to get that. It's our job to sit out on the outside, right? Particularly mine, more so, and then, of course, the director closer to it, to get a sense of the whole. How is the whole piece? Sure, it's 15 minutes, whatever, but how is the whole piece hanging together? Because what can happen is those building blocks can get so focused on that they don't fit together in the whole, right? So you have scenes that are really coming together and solid, and then this one's not working, right? But isolated, you might think it is working. But once you have it cut in the whole, you're like, oh, gee, what happened in this one? You got to go back in there and figure out what's wrong. And I think a tricky is what's wrong. You know, is it sound design? Is it the music? Is it the dialogue's not coming out? I know we talked about this, that there was some the voices. So when we record these voices, they're recorded at a microphone and it's quiet, right? There's no sense of any room around them.
Right.
Then we have to add that back in. And one of the first passes at the farm, when Poto's on the porch, there was a verb that was in there that made it sound like he was like
a reverb,
like an amphitheater. It was like really, it was way too big of a space.
Right. You can add what's called reverb, and it's slapback. Like when you move into a house and you're in a house for the first time and there's no furniture and you talk and it's got that bang kind of a added thing. That's plate reverb. Like that's a type of reverb, and you can actually add an algorithm to the dialogue to make it sound like it's in a small space or a wide space or a reflective space that the sound's coming back at you. So yeah, we watched that and it didn't sound like he was on a porch. It actually sounded like he was in a room with no furniture in it. And we're like, nope, that doesn't work.
So something you can do on your own is take your iPod or iPhone, whatever, some little thing like that, and record yourself in different places, right? So walk into your bedroom, go into a bathroom, go into the kitchen of your home, go outside, and just record yourself, talking or that sort of thing. And then go back in a quiet space, put on headphones and listen, and you'll hear those spaces, right? You can really hear what's happening in those. Actually, and we have to become aware of those.
You could even take your phone and walk into a bathroom with the door shut. Don't say anything. Record. Go to another room. Record. Go outside. Go in your garage and record. And then just the bed of the environment noise,
which we call room tone, is the technical term.
You can hear it. You put on headphones and you can shut, and you'll feel those spaces.
And in live action, like in a real movie, they will actually do that. So when they're on location, it's not when the studio doesn't work that way, but when you're on location, there'll be a moment when the sound designer, the engineer recording, will say, okay, I need everybody to be completely quiet. I have to get room tone. And they'll record a couple minutes of just the sound of a room, which is really interesting. Like, what sound is there? Well, there's always something present, and they'll record that. In our case, in animation, we have to fake that. We have to produce it, right? We have to create it. So that comes along, and then we spend time in mixing and finalizing, and it's really, we get granular. I mean, I think we end up watching the movie just over and over and over and over and over, I don't even know how many times, looking for stuff.
Right.
And guess what? We still miss things. It's the best. So in this case, I remember we finished this and screened it, and we're like, this is the best. And then we actually screened it for our premiere, played it for people. And Tom and I, same moment, as soon as it came on, both leaned over, where's Janner's scythe?
Yeah, the blade that he walks from home to go to town to take it back and return it. It had been there all the way through everything, layout and whatnot, and this final composite, we're like, he's not carrying it. He was just walking like this. Just
walking like he's carrying it. There's nothing there.
It's there now.
Yeah, it's all fixed. But those are moments that you just look at it. You think you've seen
Poto's
everything,
tattoos.
and jeez, Poto's tattoos. And you think you've seen it, and then here it comes again, and you're like, how did I miss that? It's
all
right
movies.
in front of you.
Most movies have this, and there's movies that have like legendary flubs,
legendary continuity issues,
where Han Solo in the thing about to get frozen in carbonite. You cut to him and away from him and back to him and back and forth. He's wearing his vest. He's not wearing his vest. He's wearing his vest. He's not wearing his vest. Like, those are fun.
Little things.
It's fun.
Yeah, and we do it in animation, which doesn't sound like it, because like live action, I get that because they're shot in different days. But for us, you'd think there was no way we could screw this up, and we find a way. But anyways, there's our post-production pass. Hope you enjoyed that, and thank you, Tom, for all your insight here. Look forward to talking more about making this movie. Thanks, y'all.
Bye.